Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another blind flight. And for the last couple months, I have heard a lot of hype on this bottle right here, the Jackson Purchase Foolproof. Some calling it a stag killer. So why not put that to the test? And also, why don't we throw in a wild card? I have been waiting to get into this Sagamore High Rye Bourbon, and I think now is just the right time. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Really helps the channel out, and we do stuff like this all year long. So let's start out with the Jackson Purchase here. Clocking in at only 4 years old and 117.8 proof. Mash bill on this one is 70% corn, 20% rye, 10% malted barley. And then its challengers in this blind flight. We've got the Stagg, and I used the most recent Stagg that I got my hands on, the 24D. That one's coming in at 127.4 proof. And then the last one is coming out of Sagamore. This is their new high rye bourbon. Shout out to Brad for getting this to me at the Blitz. Really appreciate you, buddy. This one is 6 years and 118 proof. Mash bill is 60% corn, 25% rye, 15% malted barley. So as a rundown on this flight up front, I mean, the Jackson Purchase is sitting there at 4 years, making it the youngest of this flight. The Stagg is non-age stated, though I typically hear 6, 7, 8 years. It is coming in with an advantage maybe at the highest proof. And then the Sagamore just sits somewhere in between, but it does have the highest rye content, which to me sometimes can equal out with the difference in proof, depending on how that finish goes. For me, it has been a long time since I had this Stagg batch, though I don't remember being too impressed with it at the time. And while I tried the Jackson Purchase, and I think I tried the Sagamore 6-year, but maybe not, at a bottle share, I've actually never had it in my own personal space here, where I get to spend some time with it. So I'm really coming at the Jackson Purchase and the Sagamore really in the blind in a couple of ways. So we're going to explore these glasses A, B, C, all randomized, ready to go. And then I am going to put an indicator up in this top corner as to what glass I am talking about as we go through the tasting notes. And like the blind flights that we do on this channel, we do elimination rounds. So in a few minutes here, I will be eliminating one of these over the top rope in the Royal Rumble. And we'll do that over and over again until there is one winner. So cheers, everybody. Let's get into Glass A. Glass A's got an interesting nose right off the bat. A little bit of a darker molasses to it, a little nuttiness, but a lot of stone fruit too. Fruit goes more into that kind of peachy range than just a straight cherry. There's something brighter there too, but mixed with the cinnamon, almost like stewed apples. Solid nose to kick things off on A. So let's drift into B here. Oh, wow. Similarities to A are quite surprising. Played a lot of the same beats there. I'm going to go in for another sniff. Not quite as dark, but it still has that stone fruits. The cinnamon is still there. Maybe not with stewed apples, maybe more like a strudel or a coffee cake. But geez, there are definitely some similarities to A and B there. It's going to be interesting to see if that remains on the taste. All right, let's get our impression of C here before we go into the tasting round. Gosh, similar once again. Hopefully this is not a me thing, that they all smell exact same, but they got the same dang story beats. C does have the stone fruits, but it does drift into a grape. We'll see if that's a marker later. But still getting the cinnamon and the baking spices, a little cakiness there, slight nuttiness too. Whew. Interesting. Let's go in for a taste on A. Cheers, whiskey friends. A definitely has a brighter aspect to the nose with those apples I was calling out. And a palate to match. Those fruits come through. There's definitely what I would call an almond butter or an almond paste, giving it a nutty base. which is probably really the main note of this one. Getting some nice baking spices and vanilla on a decent finish too. Moving on to B. B is darker, more distinctly cherry forward, drifting into a grape. I said that on C, but truly that is happening on B on the palate. The grape syrup is like the main thing I'm getting off that first sip, though there is some underlying darkness in terms of the baking spices and the oak profile. All right, one more sip before we go to C. Yeah, off first impression, I'd call this one more balanced than A. Definitely cherry and grape. All right, and our last one. Let's get into C. Was the most subtle up front amongst the three. The other two had kind of an immediate flavor punch, particularly with the fruit. But C is more docile until you get to mid palate and then into the finish, though. Strangely enough, while it's docile up front, it actually might have the strongest finish of the three. I'm actually having a hard time trying to talk my way through it, getting this blast of hints of strawberry and vanilla mixed in with something darker. It's almost a chocolate, but not like a deep chocolate, maybe even like one of those chocolate wafers where it's still got that brightness to it. Man, that finish makes that one a tough battle. So now that we've gotten to know all three, wow. I mean, off the nose, I thought they were very, very similar. And there are a lot of similarities across the palate there. I'm not even sure which one's the Stagg anymore. Originally, I thought it was C on the nose, but I'd say it's B on the profile. And I don't understand enough about the Sagamore or the Jackson Purchase profile to even call them out. Well, regardless that I like all these, one of them has to go, and it's time for our first elimination. And we're going to eliminate Glass A here. On the nose, as it opened up, A had the most discernible youth, distinctly on the nose compared to the other two. That apple cinnamon note I talked before just kind of kept getting brighter and brighter into it. On the palate, though, I like the profile quite a bit. I mean, the only thing that really put a target on this back was the finish is definitely lesser experience compared to the other two. So I like the flavor profile and everything, but that's the thing that made it stand out when I went back and forth. Let's see what A is. There we go. The Jackson Purchase is out first here. You know, that 4-year age statement does not stick out on the palate. But as you let it open up, it does emerge a bit on the nose there. So not a Stagg killer for me today, but still for $57 that I got this for at Party Source, no regrets on this one. So we are now down to a battle though between the Stagg and the dark horse in today's flight, the Sagamore High Rye Bourbon. I'm going to do a little bit of a reset here, but please listen to this. Love getting Drifting Drams out there into the community. They make the best coffee. I am thoroughly obsessed with it. And we love giving Katie and Ethan all the spotlight that we can. You might hear about Drifting Drams from our barrel picks, but not only do they know whiskey, they know coffee even better. Katie and Ethan are always bringing in the best coffee they can for this community. And if you enjoy coffee or you are curious about getting into good coffee, you need to check out Drifting Drams. Fancy coffee for regular people. So check out their website to support a small business that is passionate about what they produce. And they will forever change the way that you look at coffee. All right. And I particularly recommend if you go to the website, check out the cigar blend. Oh my gosh. I was drinking that today. It was delicious. I went through a whole pot. Yes, all 12 cups of it. I run on coffee. So we are down to the battle. Stagg versus Sagamore. I've called both of these the Stagg at some point here, so I am in the dark a little bit. Let's get the final sip into B here. Yeah, B's definitely got those stone fruits for days. It's developing even more as like a straight cherry syrup that you would put on top of a sundae. As you go through the palate, there is a little bit of this nuttiness. I think I called it almond paste off the first sip, but that's kind of still there. It's kind of turned into a drying element here. The grape note is lovely though. Even thinking a little bit of the inside of a cherry cordial with that vanilla cream as well. Drying though. Hit me again. That's the second time it hit me there in the last 30 seconds. All right, last little bit on C here. Man, lovely cherry on the nose on C. Man, this is way closer than I ever would have expected. I haven't gotten back into the sip here. I mean, getting into the taste, I do love the palate. It's still got that faintness up front, but the finish carries through. The stone fruits are really, really good on it, and it does have the longest finish of the bunch. That is tough. It's almost an inverse experience between what's happening on B and C, where B gives you those fruits up front, and then it slowly drops off, adds that little nuttiness there to give you the drying element. But C starts out faint, and then the fruits develop on the back end. The finish on C, though, is so superior. I think that is going to be the distinction here. It definitely stands out. So let's get into our final elimination here. And you know what? That drying element mid-palate that emerged was the thing that really made B stick out for me, and I had to let it go because of that. So let's see what B is. And B is the ST, that is the Stagg. Okay, that does make sense off that grapiness there. And I remember during the review, I specifically called out the nuttiness being this like weird, distracting element that didn't quite make this batch what I wanted it to be. It is interesting, though, that in this blind, it took a couple rounds for that to catch up to me blind and distract me, which makes our dark horse the winner of this whole damn thing. We got the Sagamore, everybody. Man, the Sagamore 6-year just took that down. Thank you, Brad. Up to this point, when it comes to Sagamore, my main experience has been through Evernorth and some of the barrels that they've gotten from Sagamore. But it is exciting whenever any distillery makes the transition from MGP into their own distillate. And clearly, I like it a lot. I hope they can fill out that front end with either more age or just different blends. But it really did impress me on this blind, and I really appreciate having this bottle on my shelf. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you surprised by the results of today's flight? Which one of these do you think you would have picked? And what are your thoughts on the Jackson Purchase or the Sagamore if you bought them thus far? And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey, friends. So take care of those around you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching Hello Again, Whiskey Friends, everybody. A big shout out to our amazing Patreon community. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't continue to produce the content and barrel picks week after week. And for everybody else out there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.